I never imagined I'd be sitting in a doctor's office at 39, clutching a positive pregnancy test and feeling like my world was spinning out of control. Yet here I was, Olivia Brennan, successful editor and soon-to-be unexpected mother, trying to wrap my head around this life-altering news. "Congratulations, Mrs. Brennan," Dr. Patel said, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're about 8 weeks along." I managed a weak smile. "Thank you, it's just a bit of a shock. I understand. Many women your age find it surprising, but don't worry, we'll monitor you closely." As I left the clinic, my phone buzzed. It was Patty, my closest friend and the custodian at the publishing house where I worked. "Liv." "How'd it go?" Her familiar voice was comforting. "Well, it's official. I'm pregnant." "Oh, honey, that's wonderful news. Have you told Mark yet?" I sighed. "No, not yet. He's been so busy at work lately. I barely see him." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Liv, there's something else I need to tell you. Can we meet for coffee?" A knot formed in my stomach. "Sure, Patty, the usual place." 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from Patty at Joe's Diner. Her weathered hands wrapped around a steaming mug and worry lines creased her forehead. "Spill it, Patty. What's going on?" She took a deep breath. "I've been noticing some things at the office about Mark." My heart rate quickened. "What kind of things?" "Well, he's been staying late a lot. And there's this new girl in marketing, Susan. They seem close." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Close how?" Patty reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I've seen them leaving together, and yesterday I overheard them talking about dinner plans." My mind raced. Mark had been distant lately, but I'd chalked it up to work stress. Now, with a baby on the way, the timing couldn't be worse. "What should I do, Patty?" My voice cracked. "First, don't panic. We don't know anything for sure, but maybe keep your eyes open, see if you notice anything off at home." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. "You're right. I can't confront him without proof, and with this pregnancy, God, what a mess." Patty's eyes softened. "Listen to me, Liv. You're strong. Whatever happens, you'll get through this, and I'll be right here with you." As I drove home, my mind whirled with possibilities. How could I face Mark tonight, knowing what Patty had told me? How could I share my pregnancy news when our marriage might be on shaky ground? I pulled into our driveway, noticing Mark's car was already there. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. "Mark?" I called out. "In the kitchen," he replied. I found him at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta sauce. He turned and smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" I hesitated, the weight of my secret pressing down on me. "It was interesting. We need to talk." Mark's smile faltered. "Oh, what about?" Just then his phone buzzed on the counter. I glimpsed the name on the screen, Susan. My heart sank as I realized this conversation was about to become much more complicated than I'd anticipated. "Mark," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who's Susan?" Mark's face paled at my question. "Susan? Oh, she's just a new colleague in marketing." "Why do you ask?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Your phone just lit up with a message from her." He reached for his phone, but I was quicker. Snatching it off the counter, I saw the preview. "Can't wait for dinner tomorrow. Our usual spot?" My hands shook as I looked up at Mark. "Our usual spot? What's going on, Mark?" He ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting around the kitchen. "Liv, it's not what you think. We're just working on a big project together." "At dinner? In your usual spot?" My voice rose with each word. Mark stepped towards me, hands raised. "Honey, please, let me explain." But I was already moving, storming out of the kitchen and up the stairs to our bedroom. I needed space, needed to think. "Olivia, wait!" Mark called after me. I slammed the door behind me, leaning against it as tears threatened to spill. How could this be happening? With a baby on the way, no less. The next morning I called in sick to work. I couldn't face anyone, not yet. As I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. It was Patty. "Liv, are you okay? You never miss work." I filled her in on last night's events, my voice cracking. "Oh, honey," Patty sighed. "Listen, why don't you come down to the office? Mark's in meetings all day. We can do some digging." An hour later, I found myself standing in Mark's office, feeling like an intruder. Patty kept watch at the door as I rifled through his desk drawers. "Liv, hurry," Patty whispered. "Someone's coming." Just then, my hand closed around something small and metallic. I pulled it out. a heart-shaped locket I'd never seen before. "Patty, look at this," I breathed, holding up the necklace. Her eyes widened. "That's not yours?" I shook my head, my stomach churning. Opening the locket, I found a tiny photo inside. Mark and a young, attractive woman with auburn hair. They were smiling, cheeks pressed together. "That must be Susan," Patty said softly. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I quickly pocketed the locket and we slipped out of the office, hearts pounding. Back at my desk, I examined the locket more closely. An inscription on the back read, "To Mark, all my love, S." "I can't believe this," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Patty squeezed my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Liv. What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, a cheerful voice called out, "Oh, hi there. You must be Olivia." I looked up to see the woman from the photo standing in front of my desk, all smiles and perfect makeup. "I'm Susan," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard so much about you from Mark." My world tilted on its axis. Here she was, the other woman, acting like we were old friends. I felt sick. "Nice to meet you," I managed, ignoring her outstretched hand. Susan's smile faltered slightly. "I hope you don't mind, but I borrowed one of Mark's ties the other day for a photo shoot. Is it okay if I pop into his office to return it?" I nodded mutely, watching as she breezed into Mark's office. Patty and I exchanged glances. "Did you see how comfortable she was going in there?" Patty whispered. I clutched the locket in my pocket, feeling its weight like an anchor. "Patty, what am I going to do? I'm pregnant, my husband's cheating on me, and I just met his mistress." Patty's eyes hardened with resolve. "We're going to fight, that's what. Mark doesn't know what's coming for him." As Susan emerged from Mark's office, laughing at some private joke on her phone, I made a decision. I wouldn't be a victim in this story. It was time to take control. "Patty," I said, my voice low and determined, "I need your help. We're going to expose everything." I sat across from Patty at our favorite diner, my hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee. The weight of the locket in my pocket felt like a ticking bomb. "Are you sure about this, Liv?" Patty asked, her eyes filled with concern. I took a deep breath. "What choice do I have, Patty? I'm pregnant, and my husband is cheating on me with some young marketing exec." Patty leaned forward. "We need solid evidence, photos, emails, anything that proves the affair." "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered, feeling the sting of tears. "Listen to me," Patty said firmly. "You're stronger than you think. We'll do this together." Just then my phone buzzed. It was Mark. "Where are you? I thought we were having dinner tonight." My heart raced as I typed a reply. "Working late. Don't wait up." "Liar," I muttered, putting the phone away. Patty raised an eyebrow. "What's the plan?" "We follow them," I said, surprising myself with my resolve. "Their usual spot, remember?" An hour later, we were parked across the street from La Petite Maison, a cozy French bistro. My stomach churned as I watched Mark and Susan walk in, his hand on the small of her back. "I think I'm going to be sick," I mumbled. Patty squeezed my arm. "Stay strong, Liv. We need pictures." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. "Mark, in a late meeting. Might crash at the office. Don't worry about me." Rage boiled inside me. "That lying bastard!" Patty was already out of the car, her phone ready. "Come on, let's get closer." We crept toward the restaurant, ducking behind potted plants. Through the window I could see Mark and Susan, laughing over wine. His hand rested on hers, fingers intertwined. Click, click. Patty's phone captured it all. "I can't watch anymore," I choked out, turning away. Back in the car, Patty showed me the photos. There was no denying it now, the intimate touches, the loving gazes. My world was crumbling. "What now?" I asked, feeling hollow. "Now we dig deeper," Patty said. "We need access to his emails, his phone records." I hesitated. "Isn't that illegal?" Patty's eyes flashed. "So is adultery in some states. He's the one breaking vows here, Liv." The next day, I found myself in Mark's home office, heart pounding as I logged into his computer. Years of trust shattered in moments. "Bingo," I whispered, finding a folder labeled Susan, Project X. But as I clicked through the files, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just an affair. There were financial documents, plans for a new business venture with Susan as co-owner. "He's planning to leave," I realized, my hand instinctively going to my still flat stomach. Just then I heard the front door open. Mark's voice called out, "Liv, you home?" Panic seized me. I quickly closed the files and shut down the computer, my heart racing. "Up here," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Mark appeared in the doorway, his smile faltering as he saw me in his office. "What are you doing in here?" I forced a smile. "Just looking for some stamps. How was your meeting last night?" His eyes darted away. "Oh, you know, boring work stuff." The lies hung heavy between us. I wanted to scream, to confront him with everything I knew, but Patty's words echoed in my mind. "We need more evidence." "Well, I'm glad you're home," I said, standing up. "We should talk about the nursery. You know, for the baby." Mark's face paled. "The baby?" I nodded, watching his reaction carefully. "Remember? I told you I was pregnant the other night." "Right, of course," he stammered. "The baby." "Yes, we should definitely talk about that." As I brushed past him heading downstairs, my resolve hardened. This man, this liar, would not destroy me or my child's future. With Patty's help, I would expose everything. The game was on, and I intended to win. The weeks that followed were a blur of nausea, both from my pregnancy and the sickening reality of Mark's betrayal. Patty had become my rock, tirelessly gathering evidence while I struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy at home. "Liv, I've got something," Patty said one afternoon, her voice hushed as we huddled in the office supply closet. "You're not going to like it." She handed me a stack of photos. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. Mark and Susan entering a high-end jewelry store. Mark, down on one knee, presenting her with a ring. Their embrace, her left hand now adorned with a diamond that caught the sunlight. "No," I whispered, feeling the floor drop out from under me. "He wouldn't?" Patty's eyes were full of sympathy. "There's more. I managed to get into his email." She pulled out her phone, showing me a series of messages. My eyes caught phrases that made my blood run cold. Divorce papers, new start after the baby is born. I stumbled back, colliding with a shelf of paper reams. "He's planning to leave me after our child is born?" "I'm so sorry, Liv," Patty said, steadying me, "but now we have proof. We can fight this." As I left work that day, my mind raced. How could I face Mark knowing what I knew? How could I carry this child, a reminder of our broken vows? I found myself driving to my OB/GYN's office without even realizing it. Dr. Patel's kind face greeted me as I burst into tears in her exam room. "Olivia, what's wrong?" she asked, concern etched in her features. Through sobs, I poured out the whole sordid story. Dr. Patel listened patiently, offering tissues and gentle pats on my hand. "I don't know if I can do this," I finished, my hand on my slightly swollen belly. "How can I have this baby when everything is falling apart?" Dr. Patel's eyes were firm, but compassionate. "Olivia, listen to me. This child is innocent in all of this, and you are stronger than you know." She turned on the ultrasound machine. "Let's take a look, shall we?" As the grainy image appeared on the screen, my breath caught. There, in black and white, was my baby. Tiny hands, the curve of a spine, a fluttering heartbeat. "Oh," I breathed, a different kind of tears filling my eyes. "Your baby is healthy and growing perfectly." Dr. Patel said softly, "Whatever you decide, remember that you're not alone." I left the office with a new sense of purpose. This child deserved better. I deserved better. At home, I found Mark in his study, hunched over his laptop. He quickly closed it as I entered. "Hey, honey," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "How was your day?" I took a deep breath. "Mark, we need to talk." His face paled. "About what?" "About our future," I said, my hand instinctively going to my stomach. "About the baby." Mark's eyes followed my movement, a flicker of something. Guilt, fear, crossing his face. "Of course. What about it?" I steeled myself. "I know everything, Mark, about Susan, about the ring, about your plans to leave." He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Olivia, I can explain." "Save it." I cut him off. "I've seen the proof. Photos, emails, everything." Mark's face crumpled, all pretense gone. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." I felt a strange calm settle over me. "I'm giving you one chance to make this right, for our child. Tell me the truth, all of it right now, or I walk out that door and the next time you see me will be in court." The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of love turned to betrayal. In that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. But as I felt the slight flutter of movement in my belly, I realized I was ready to face whatever came next. Mark opened his mouth to speak, and I braced myself for the truth that would shape our futures. Mark's confession hit me like a tidal wave, each word another blow to the life we'd built together. He spoke of feeling trapped, of Susan's youth and ambition reigniting something he thought he'd lost. I listened, numb, as he detailed their plans for a new life, a new business, a future that didn't include me or our unborn child. I never meant to hurt you, Olivia, he finished lamely, unable to meet my eyes. I stood, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. I think you should leave, Mark. Tonight. He nodded, defeated, and left to pack a bag. As the front door closed behind him, I sank to the floor, allowing myself one moment of weakness before the real fight began. The next morning, I called in sick to work and made an appointment with Diana Reeves, the best divorce attorney in the city. Patty insisted on coming with me for support. Miss Brennan, Diana said, her sharp eyes taking in my swollen eyes and trembling hands, I understand you're in a difficult situation. Tell me everything. For the next hour, I laid out the whole sordid tale, Patty filling in details where my voice failed me. Diana listened intently, taking notes and occasionally asking for clarification. Well, she said when I finished, you've certainly got a strong case for alimony and child support. Those photos and emails Patty gathered are gold, but there's one complication. My heart sank. What's that? The business venture Mark's planning with Susan. If it takes off, it could significantly increase his assets. We need to move quickly to ensure you get your fair share. I felt a flash of anger. I don't want his money. I just want justice. Patty finished for me, squeezing my hand. Diana's eyes softened. I understand, but think about your child's future. You deserve security after what he's put you through. As we left the office, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Can we talk? I made a mistake. I want to make this right. I showed Patty, who scoffed. Don't fall for it, Liv. He's just scared now that he knows you're fighting back. But a small part of me wondered, could we fix this? For the baby's sake? My internal debate was cut short as we rounded the corner and came face to face with Mark and Susan, hand in hand. They froze, caught off guard. Olivia, Mark started, but I held up a hand. Save it. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I think you've said enough. Susan had the decency to look ashamed, but then she spoke. Olivia, I'm so sorry. We never meant for this to happen. But you have to understand. Understand what? I cut her off, fury rising. That you thought it was okay to destroy a family? That you two could plan a whole new life while I carried his child? Mark stepped forward, reaching for me. Liv, please, we can work this out for the baby. Don't you dare. I hissed, backing away. You lost the right to talk about this baby when you decided to abandon us. Patty put a protective arm around me. You should both leave, now. As they hurried away, I felt a strange mix of pain and liberation. The last threads of hope for reconciliation had snapped, but with them went the weight of indecision. Patty, I said, my voice firm, I need you to do something for me. Anything, honey. Call Diana back. Tell her to drop the papers. We're going for everything. Patty's smile was fierce. That's my girl. As we walked away, I felt my baby kick, as if in agreement. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. The road ahead would be hard, but I was ready to fight. For myself, for my child, and for the future we deserved. Mark had made his choice. Now it was time to make mine. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than I expected. My hands shook as I smoothed down my blouse, trying to hide my growing baby bump. Patty stood beside me, a silent pillar of strength. Are you sure about this, Liv? She asked, concern etched on her face. I nodded, my jaw set. It's time to end this charade once and for all. We were outside La Petite Maison, the restaurant where I'd first seen Mark with Susan. Tonight, we'd confront them both. Remember, Patty whispered, I'll be recording everything. Just stay calm and let them dig their own graves. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The maitre d' led us to a secluded corner where Mark and Susan sat, heads close together, oblivious to our approach. Well, isn't this cozy? I said, my voice cutting through their intimate bubble. They jerked apart, faces pale with shock. Mark stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his wine glass. Olivia, what are you doing here? I think that's my line, Mark, I replied, ice in my tone. Funny, I don't see any business papers, unless your new venture involves a lot of candlelight and hand-holding. Susan tried to speak, but I silenced her with a glare. Don't. You've said quite enough already. Mark's eyes darted between us, panic setting in. Liv, please. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Explain what? I interrupted, my voice rising. How you've been lying to me for months? How you're planning to abandon your unborn child for some misguided midlife crisis? Other diners were starting to stare. Good, let them see the truth. Mark's face flushed red. Keep your voice down. You're making a scene. Oh, I'm making a scene? I laughed bitterly. That's rich coming from the man who's been parading his mistress around town. Susan flinched at the word mistress. Mark, maybe we should go somewhere private. No, I said firmly. We're going to have this out right here, right now. Mark's demeanor suddenly changed, his eyes hardening. Fine, you want the truth? I'm unhappy, Olivia. I have been for years. This baby, it wasn't part of the plan. Susan understands me in a way you never could. Each word was a dagger, but I stood my ground. And what about our vows, Mark? What about the life we built together? People change, he said coldly. I'm not the same man you married. Clearly, I spat, the Mark I married wouldn't be such a coward. His face contorted with anger. Coward? I'm finally being honest about what I want. Honest? I scoffed. Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back, planning to leave your pregnant wife? Mark's control snapped. He grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight. You don't understand anything. Patty stepped forward, her phone visible. Let her go, Mark, now. He released me, suddenly aware of the scene we were causing. The restaurant had gone silent, all eyes on us. This isn't over, Mark hissed. You think you can ruin me? I'll fight you every step of the way. I stood tall, one hand protectively over my belly. Bring it on. I'm not the weak woman you think I am. As Mark and Susan hurried out, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. Patty caught me as I swayed. Liv, are you okay? I nodded, but a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I think something's wrong with the baby. Panic flooded Patty's eyes. We need to get you to a hospital, now. As she helped me out of the restaurant, I felt a mixture of triumph and terror. I'd confronted Mark, exposed his lies, but at what cost? The last thing I remember before the world went black was Patty's voice, urgent and scared, calling for an ambulance. In that moment, I realized the true battle was only just beginning. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room buzzed overhead as I slowly regained consciousness. Patty's worried face swam into view. Liv? Thank God you're awake. How are you feeling? I tried to sit up, panic rising as I remembered why I was here. The baby? Is the baby okay? Dr. Patel appeared at my bedside, her expression reassuring. Your baby is fine, Olivia. You experienced some stress-induced contractions, but we've managed to stop them. However, you need to avoid any further stress for the remainder of your pregnancy. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a renewed sense of determination. I couldn't let Mark's betrayal jeopardize my child's health any longer. As if summoned by my thoughts, Mark burst into the room, his face a mix of concern and guilt. Liv, I just heard. Are you all right? Before I could respond, Patty stepped between us, her voice cold. I think you've done enough damage, Mark. You should leave. Mark's expression darkened. This is between me and my wife. You need to back off, Patty. You've been meddling in our affairs for far too long. I found my voice, anger giving me strength. Don't you dare speak to her that way. Patty has been more of a support to me than you ever were. Mark's facade cracked, revealing the ugly truth beneath. Support? She's been poisoning you against me. Can't you see she's just a bitter old woman living vicariously through you? The room fell silent, the weight of his cruel words hanging in the air. Patty's face crumpled for a moment before she straightened her spine, dignity radiating from every pore. I may be old, Mark, she said quietly, but at least I know the value of loyalty and respect, something you seem to have forgotten. In that moment, I saw Mark for who he truly was, not the man I'd loved and built a life with, but a selfish, cruel individual who would lash out at anyone who threatened his comfort. Get out, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Get out now, or I swear I'll call security. Mark's eyes widened, realizing he'd gone too far. Liv, I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Save it, I cut him off. I want a divorce, Mark, and I'm going to fight you for every penny you're worth. He stumbled back as if I'd physically struck him. You can't be serious. Think about our child. I am thinking about our child, I replied, my resolve hardening. I'm thinking about the kind of example I want to set, and it's certainly not one of staying with a man who has no respect for me or the people I care about. Mark's face contorted with anger. Fine, you want a war? You've got one. But don't come crying to me when you realize you can't make it on your own. As he stormed out, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. I turned to Patty, who was wiping away tears. "I'm so sorry, Liv," she whispered. "I never meant to cause more trouble." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "You have nothing to apologize for. You've been my rock through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." Dr. Patel cleared her throat, reminding us of her presence. "Olivia, I know this is a difficult time, but remember what I said about stress. You need to focus on your health and your baby's well-being." I nodded, placing a protective hand over my belly. "You're right. No more confrontations. From now on, everything goes through my lawyer." As Patty helped me gather my things to leave the hospital, I felt a mix of exhaustion and determination. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it. Mark had shown his true colors, and in doing so, he'd freed me from any lingering doubts or misplaced loyalty. This was no longer just about me. It was about creating a better future for my child, a future free from lies, betrayal, and disrespect. And I would fight with everything I had to make that future a reality. The courtroom felt suffocating as I waddled in, 9 months pregnant and ready to face the final battle. Mark sat on the other side, his face a mask of cold indifference. As I took my seat, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. "Not now," I silently pleaded. Our lawyers presented their cases, a blur of words and accusations. Mark's attorney painted me as a vindictive wife, out for revenge. My lawyer countered with evidence of Mark's infidelity and financial deception. As the judge called a recess to review the evidence, another contraction hit, stronger this time. Patty, ever vigilant, noticed my discomfort. "Liv, are you okay?" she whispered. I nodded, gritting my teeth. "I'm fine, we're almost done." But as the judge returned and began to speak, my water broke. The courtroom erupted in chaos. "Order! Order in the court!" The judge shouted, but it was drowned out by my cry of pain. Patty jumped into action, calling for an ambulance. To my surprise, it was Mark who rushed to my side. "Liv, I'm so sorry," he said, his face pale with concern. "Let me help you." For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd once loved, but as another contraction racked my body, I knew there was no going back. "No," I gasped. "Patty, please, I want Patty." The hurt in Mark's eyes was palpable, but I couldn't bring myself to care. As the paramedics arrived, Patty held my hand, her presence a balm to my pain. Hours later, in the delivery room, I pushed with all my might, Patty by my side, encouraging me every step of the way. "You're doing great, Liv," she said, wiping my brow. "You're the strongest woman I know." With one final excruciating push, my daughter entered the world, her cries filling the room. As the nurse placed her in my arms, I felt a love so fierce it took my breath away. "Hello, little one," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'm your mommy, and I promise to always protect you." Patty beamed down at us, her eyes shining with pride and love. "She's beautiful, Liv, just like her mother." A knock at the door interrupted our moment. It was Mark, looking lost and uncertain. Can I see her?" he asked hesitantly. I nodded, too exhausted to argue. As Mark held our daughter, his face softened, and for a moment I saw the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. "Liv," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "I've been such a fool. Can we try to work this out, for her sake?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a sense of peace wash over me. "No, Mark, we can't go back, but we can move forward as co-parents who respect each other." He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I'd like that, and I'm sorry, truly sorry for everything." As Mark left, Patty squeezed my hand. "You did it, Liv. You stood your ground and came out stronger." I smiled, looking down at my daughter. "We did it, Patty. I couldn't have done any of this without you." In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. The divorce was finalized with a fair settlement that ensured my daughter and I would be taken care of. Mark and I established a cordial co-parenting relationship, both of us committed to putting our daughter first. As I sat in the rocking chair in the nursery, my baby girl sleeping peacefully in my arms, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight, it had all led to this moment of pure, unadulterated joy. Patty knocked softly, entering with a cup of tea. "How are my two favorite girls doing?" I smiled up at her, feeling a wave of gratitude. "We're perfect. Thank you, Patty, for everything." She leaned down, kissing my forehead. "That's what family does, Liv, and that's what we are now, family." As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow through the window, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in months. The road ahead might be challenging, but I was ready to face it, with my daughter in my arms and Patty by my side. This wasn't the ending I'd once imagined for myself, but as I looked at my sleeping child, I realized it was the beginning of something even better. A new chapter filled with love, strength, and the unbreakable bonds of true family.